times Sinaloa allowed to ship cocaine in. Government admits it's true. I mean, this is bona fide, absolute proof here of a false flag. How is this affecting, from your sources there in D.C., in closing, how is this affecting the power structure?
Well, I think clearly the power structure is concerned. I think if we knew the truth, we'd find out a lot of people knew a lot of things and never actually said anything, which makes them, of course, culpable, criminally, at least criminally negligent. Like I say, you've got as the point man for the Democrats and the Judiciary Committee a guy who's flaky like Hank Johnson. I mean, I remember when Cynthia ran against this guy, Hank Johnson. He's a Buddhist, and he's some sort of karate expert, and yet he's representing a majority African American district. He's African American, but how many Buddhists would you find in the suburbs in DeKalb County?
By the way, we could pull the clip up if people forget, guys. Go to YouTube, type in the congressman's name and capsizing, and I mean he said it. He said, "Listen, we can't put too many troops on an island because islands float." He didn't know there are mountains coming up and land masses sticking up. He actually thinks that the rock and the trees is floating. I mean, that shows when they get rid of Cynthia McKinney, who I know you're friends with, who exposed government drug dealing, all this, they put somebody in who literally is just a complete Pop-Tart. I mean, he probably has, I mean, I'm surprised the man can tie his shoelaces. I mean, who thinks that islands float?
Well, I mean, maybe he's availing himself of some of the stuff that's coming across the border from Mexico. Clearly, if that's who the Democrats are using as their point man, who's now going on TV to defend Eric Holder, I mean, I think that just goes to show how bad the situation is. I mean, why isn't there somebody who's who's wrapped a little bit better mentally, asking the questions? This is clearly an attempt to protect Holder, which also is an attempt to protect the White House from the political fallout.
But that shows the strategy. To use someone who is a low-grade moron who doesn't even know they're a shill just to babble incoherently, you're not going to get anything out of him. And I think that is the strategy, just an over-the-top. I mean, take MF Global Corzine, 40-to-1 bets with people's money, J.P. Morgan getting the money. The government knows where it was wired. Now the head of the CME group goes public and says, look, they did know where it went. Corzine took the money briefly, and then I'll let you go because I know you're busy, Wayne. I have another meeting coming up with Phil Berg there at the press club. But what do you make of the MF Global and how bold it is for the first time in the history of the Chicago Mercantile, billions missing, and they just say, hey, that's the way it is?
Well, this
right.
is a
well, I mean, it shows that Congress has been asleep at the wheel. I mean, this whole thing where Corzine is getting treated with kid gloves when he's obviously a crook, and this thing was all engineered. Goldman Sachs was involved in this whole operation. This was, basically betting all these people's money on a big in a big gambling casino on the futures of these various European economies, which have all gone basically bankrupt. And look, even on Darrell Issas, but he's the chairman of the government oversight committee. I mean, again, here's a guy who's problematic. He won't ask the right questions because he's got his own political agenda. And but here we have a situation with the border, and I think this thing is going. It's Congress. Congress is not asking the right questions here, and they're putting up these complete shills to go up against people like Eric Holder, who's a pretty slick operator. After all, he represented the death squads in Colombia when he was representing Chiquita Foods. That's his background. So he's no stranger to violence in Latin America. He probably paid for a couple of his houses. That violence, I should say.
Well, you're right. I mean, I've talked to Jesse Trinidad and other lawyers involved. They've sued and got the documents. From as best I can research, Holder was the prime commander for OKC. I mean, he is and as you said, death squad handler. I mean, he's really a nasty hombre.
Yes, that's right. And Actually, and I'm actually not meeting Phil Bird here, but I'm meeting Greg Palast, who, of course, has a lot of insights on what's been happening, especially in Latin America. With
I'm sorry, one of the guys got confused. Well, Greg Palast, well, is Greg there?
He should be here shortly, if he's not here already.
All right, well, I'll let you go in a minute or two so you can go meet with him. I don't know how I got the Phil Berg situation. Maybe it was in my mind questing after the latest information on the birth certificate, the provenance of this made-up fake history. We know he's got a fake history and there's a cover-up. And from your worldwide research from Chicago to Jakarta, Indonesia, anything on who he really is. We know the whole family's CIA, but do we have any idea who he is?
Yeah, the more this is like peeling back an onion. The more you peel it back, it gets stranger and stranger. There's always been this charge that he's a secret Muslim. Well, he's not a secret Muslim, but I recently ran across there's a cult that started in Java. It's called the Subud movement. It started in basically many years ago, but it gained a lot of adherents in the 60s when Obama's mother was working there, and it became one of these New Age cult movements. But there's clearly links between this movement and the CIA. As a matter of fact, the guy, Bob Pock was his name, the man who founded it. He died in the 1980s, but Bob Pock was very much in league with the people who overthrew President Sukarno in that CIA coup. They're very anti-communist. And where do they get all their money? This is a worldwide religious movement now, and it's, like I say, it's one of these New Age cults, and we know about them. The CIA loves to take those cults under their wing, and we've been talking about mind control stuff, and I found links between the Subud sect and the Tavistock Institute in London, which has been directly linked to parapsychology and mind control operations.
By the way, Wayne, as you know, in the last 5 years, Wired Magazine and others have admitted, especially with Afghan troops that engage in massacres and things, they're giving them amnesics now and tucking them into weird research facilities for up to a month after these events. They're now kind of publicly admitting and psychologically inoculating everybody that they're engaged in mind control publicly. What the head of the Army's Future Society, Mr. Marshall, says that it's not what weapons we have, but what drugs we're on. But I think the ruling elite, in fact, I think they're taking, as you said, some of their own stuff. Well, I think we have megalomania going on here. I mean, when you see the elite 40-to-1 bets, craziness, doing all this, they've clearly reached a reckless scenario, and I think they're out of control, and that's more frightening than them being a bunch of cold-blooded bastards. What's your final say on that, Wayne?
Well, my thought is, and I'm working on this book on Obama and his family's links with the CIA, and it would not surprise me that if he were a member of the Subud cult, I think his mother certainly was. All of her friends seem to have been involved with them. And Lolo Soetoro, possibly he was too. This is, they counted former foreign ministers of Indonesia were members of this cult. People in other countries, as I say, there's a link to some of their British members in the Tavistock Institute.
WikiLeaks is connected to similar cults.
Yes, there's a cult in Australia. So I think this is when they get these people in there and mess with their minds, then they have the fertile territory to control them. And but every one of these cults you look at, you see a connection to the CIA. Well,
that's like Skull and Bones or Bohemian Grove. You get them there to have a bunch of gay sex. Now you got video of it, film of it. I mean, it's all just compromising.
Yeah, look at Jonestown, Scientology, you name it. You go down the whole list, and you've got all these connections in the Subud. Look, I didn't even know about the Subud movement until I discovered this by reading something that I had gotten out of the CIA archival information, and then I went back and read Janie Scott's book, A Singular Woman, and bingo, it's right in there about Ann Dunham's closest friends being members of this sect. or cult, if you will.
So we always go back to the same place. In my 17 years, or now 19 years of research, but 17 years on air, it always leads back to freakish cults, which is the cover for mind control. WayneMadsenReport.com. Wayne Madsen, thanks for all the time. Go have your meeting with Greg Palast, and award-winning journalist in his own right. I look forward to speaking to you in the future. Watch your back, my friend.
I shall do so. Good to be with you, Alex.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Good to talk to you. Okay, as we started it out via his iPhone, we ended up on the iPhone via the phone, and that's basically it for Infowars Nightly News. But I want to leave you with Congressman Hank Johnson from Georgia. Amongst all his weird comments, I'd forgotten about this a year or so ago, or 2 years ago, saying that you don't want to put too many troops on an island because it'll capsize. And if you watch the whole speech, he was serious. It was not a joke because he got questioned about it. I mean, it just shows the type of whacked out people. The truth is the world is run by a bunch of sickos. Only sickos would engage in the type of evil. A normal person has compassion. I mean, I got too many dogs. I found some lab somebody dumped when I was out in East Texas visiting family. We don't have time, room for it, but I can't get rid of it because, you know, I'm a softie. And the globalists see that as a weakness. With them, though, they have no humanity left, ladies and gentlemen, nothing. And they just are not connected to reality, and they're very dangerous. So we're going to end this edition of Infowars Nightly News with Congressman Hank Johnson and capsizing islands. And if you don't understand why islands don't capsize, I'm not going to try to explain it to new viewers. Just stop taking the Prozac. We'll see you back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central at prisonplanet.tv.
Well, this is a island that at its widest level is, 12 miles from shore to shore, and at its smallest level, or smallest location, it's 7 miles between one shore and the other. Is that correct?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island, and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. The Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition of about 25,000 more into the population.
And also,
that's enough. I mean, this guy is obviously completely whacked out of his mind or on PCP. And he makes other comments like this. So this is who runs our society. That's who the bankers want in there. You notice their naval war leader, their killer, is as sharp as a razor blade. But the person there minding the money is like, and you could tell just whacked out his brain. And then it's like this long, this wide, and capsize. I mean, this is who runs our society. This is who runs our society. And it's like the cops I see on the videos where they find a constitution and they flip out and get scared. That's as crazy as thinking islands capsize. I mean, this society is run by lunatics and scum. And we, the normal thinking people, have to get up off our butts and get control of our society again and restore the republic, or God help us. Because we got a bunch of people like that in control of nuclear weapons. And a bunch of crazy bankers that are running around so cocksure they think they're invincible, making 40-to-1 bets with people's money. I'm Alex Jones reporting from the last sane corner of the world, I think sometimes. And again, for the second goodbye of the evening, just after that clip, I had to come back. I hope we see you here tomorrow night. I guess I am a terrorist. I'm for decency. I'm for honor. I'm for common sense and the laws of physics. I don't think islands capsize.